So I'm going to talk about YunoHost. If you don't already know YunoHost, this is a self-hosting distribution trying to make self-hosting accessible to as many people as we can. So thanks to the organizer for selecting my talk, by the way. So before I go into what actually does YunoHost, I want to spend some time to recall the motivation behind the YunoHost and why we are so passionate and why we think this is important to democratize self-hosting. So you probably already know those terms, surveillance capitalism and global surveillance madness. I'm not going to recall why this is so bad. I think we have been discussing this in the FOSS community for like 10 years now. So just as a summary, if you don't know how bad it is, basically just remember that they want our souls. They want everything, every data about you. And they want every piece of data that they can gather just to try to get a grasp on what makes us individuals and what makes us society. And the way they gather those data is through this evil cloud of proprietary and centralized services. So I think I don't have to explain what these services are. We all know them. But I think what's the point where we are at is that the general public is becoming quite aware that this is an issue, right? This cannot go on forever. We need to find some alternatives to this. But so people are, I see a lot of people like giving talks about why the GAFAMs are bad and why the Google empire is bad and the NSA and so on. And then people ask, but what should we do? And actually, it's not quite obvious yet what is the answer to those online services. There are some answers to other things like using Linux and Android and so on. But for those services online, what are alternatives? And when we speak of alternatives, we want them to be concrete and straightforward, and to be alternative not just for nerds, right? We want your parents should be able to use them, your children and your friends, and not just us as technical people. So let's try to take it seriously, like on a big scale. Like if Google disappeared tomorrow, like what would we say to people? What would we tell them to use as services such that it can, so that they can have the same services as they do on Google and Facebook and other things? So how would we build this decentralized internet, right? And so far, it's not quite obvious what we would say to people if Google disappeared tomorrow. And it's not really because we lack building blocks, right? We have all those amazing FOSS software, which is already working and already delivering quality services comparable to what the Google empire provides, for instance. So I just put my favorite here, but of course there are a lot of them. But so I think what we miss is a way to bind these services together, because people, they don't want to hear that instead, in order to get rid of Google, they should go to like 20 different websites, each of them serving a different service. We should have something to bind them together so that you can just go somewhere else where the services are free and open and ethical. And that would be nice. So do we have something that we could call like a Libre platform, or several Libre platforms that we could propose to people as alternatives to Google and other surveillance capitalism services? So in fact, there is a work which has been done by Framasoft. Actually, this is the example I will be talking about. Framasoft, if you don't know it, is a French association. And a few years ago, they started this de-Googleify campaign. So they took this map of services, of proprietary services, and one by one, they built an alternative to those services using free software and made it available to the general public. And it's quite successful, actually. And you can go on their website and find this list of services about, and basically you will obtain equivalent services to all those centralized services you find on Google. But there is several issues with this, and actually the Microsoft people, they understand it, because the point is not to have Microsoft as a replacement for Google, right? The point is decentralization. So we don't want to have a big entity as an alternative to Google. We want several smaller entities just to not have centralization of power. So this is why they started this Chaton initiative in France, which is quite similar to the LibWaster project, I think. And this is what we want to do. We want to have a lot of various local entities, so Chaton and LibWasters and so on, which provide similar services to Microsoft. But to get this, we need to make it easy, actually, to replicate Microsoft model. It won't work otherwise. Otherwise, we will be like just a few Chaton, a few LibWasters, and we won't be able to deliver a competitive alternative to the Google empire and the whole surveillance capitalism ecosystem. And the second point is, what about emails and file storage? In fact, the Microsoft people, they were not quite able to address this issue. Like, what do we do with email and file storage to provide alternatives to Gmail, for instance, and Google Drive? And my point of view on this, my interpretation of this is that it is way too complex and expensive for small-scale third parties to build a realistic and affordable and quality alternative to Gmail and Google Drive, for instance. So this is an issue, like what do we do with this? But of course, since I'm talking about YunoHost, what if you add your own server and host data on your own hard drives? And in fact, when you think about it, we have personal computers in everyday life. We even have pocket computers, but those things were not quite obvious when computing started. When we had the first computers, having a personal computer was just like a fantasy. What would you do with it, and what would you do when it breaks? And you don't have a PhD in electronics, so how are you going to fix it? So why not have personal servers? In fact, and one reason is that server administration is, of course, madness. This is complete hell. This is a time sinkhole. You will spend your whole life doing this, and it is complicated as hell. But does it have to be? Does it have to be? Like, again, at some point, it was not obvious that personal computers would exist. And I'm gonna go one step further and say that we won't get rid of surveillance capitalism if only a technical elite is able to deploy and maintain servers. We don't have a professional army of friendly and ethical sysadmin ready to work for free against surveillance capitalism, right? So we need everybody we can get, and we need something that even your parents and your friends and your children who don't necessarily know technology quite well can use. Otherwise, you can build the best Mastodon thing and ActivityPub and the best self-hosting software, but if nobody is able to deploy them and maintain them easily, it won't just scale against the Google empire. So this is where YunoHost comes in, and I dub this YunoHost can be seen as the Ubuntu of self-hosting, right? And the idea is that before Ubuntu, basically, you had to know command line to use Linux. You couldn't put Linux in the hand of your parents and your children and your friends. And at some point, Ubuntu decided, okay, this Linux thing, it should be usable by the general public. So basically, how does it work? You're gonna buy a machine. So if you want to self-host at home, you can use an ARM board or an old computer, and you can also buy a VPS online. And then you're gonna download the pre-installed image that we provide, or you can also just install Debian, and then on top of Debian, you can install YunoHost. And so then once you install YunoHost, you're going to get the web administration interface, which we think is quite simple. And then you're going to be able to tell your friends to, you're gonna be able to install a few apps in just a few clicks. So this should be a video, actually. I'm not sure what it's not working, but anyway, it's not. And then you're going to be able to give access to your friends. So again, this should be a video. Not sure why it's not working, but you can give access via a user portal to the apps you install on YunoHost. So I want to try to make a small demo of how actually YunoHost behaves. Not sure if I have so much time left, but anyway. So this is a server on which I just installed YunoHost. So the first step is to run what we call the post installation. So in the post installation, you need to choose a domain. But hey, I don't have a domain name right now. So what can I do? I can use a free nohost.me domain provided by the YunoHost infrastructure. So let's call this FOSDEM YunoFOSDEM. Okay, and so it's going to be configured automatically, actually. So here I need to choose a secure, very secure domain password. And then let's go. So I don't have to save this. Okay. And then it's going to configure and initialize basically the server. And the domain I chose, which I don't own yet, but it's going to be automatically configured. So you don't really need to configure any DNS record by hand. So this is going to be like taking like 1 or 2 minutes. So I'm cheating a bit because I have another server on which I just ran the post installation and it finished. So I'm going to log in the YunoHost interface. The first thing I'm going to do is to create a user for myself. So let's create a user called Alex, all X. So this user is going to receive an email, so alex@FOSDEM2019.nos.me. Because in fact, I already have a fully functional email stack working just right after the post installation. So let's create this user. Yes, it's done. So I'm going to show you that you can just install various applications. So you see we have all this application catalog. This is just the official application. So I'm going to install Nextcloud. So I need to tell it where to install it. So it's going to be available at FOSDEM 2019.nos.me/Nextcloud. Okay, this looks fine. Alex is going to be the admin, so install it. Okay, so it's going to take quite a while. I wanted to show you that you can configure Thunderbird automatically. Already. So you have to show you that you really have a working email stack. But anyway, I think I'm going to skip this to gain some time. So what I want to show is that after the installation finishes, basically you end up on this screen, like in just 2 minutes. I can show you after I finish the talk. You end up on this screen with an already working Nextcloud. So just in a few minutes, the whole process. So like basically what I showed you is that in 30 minutes or 1 hour, if you're not used to it, you can basically set up a fully functional server with several services, email working, and XMPP and other things. Also, you can install Let's Encrypt certificate. Obviously, I didn't show it, but it just takes a few clicks. So a few numbers about the status of the project. We have right now something like 3,000 instances. We have a quite active community on the forum and IRC and other things. We are kind of a small team with basically 10 regular contributors, or maybe like between 5 and 15, depending of the period. And we have more than 100 working applications and quite a few more in testing or in progress. And our current goals in the project are to basically smooth even more the user experience and increase the robustness so that it's easier for people to have their server working and to diagnose issues and so on. We are trying to expand the user base, especially outside of France, because basically 90% of our users are in France. So if you are non-French, please use YunoHost. And we also try to get funding. So if you have money, we have some paper for you. Please come to us. In fact, we just answered the call like 2 days ago. And we have quite a lot of happy users. So this is just a few of them saying how YunoHost is great and everything. If you want to help us basically be a YunoHost user, this can be a first step, of course. Please organize like install parties. And please give us feedback on the user experience. Anything that is troublesome to you or that is frustrating to you, please tell us. This is very important for us. You can do quite a lot of other things, but I'm going to skip it. And yes, so the conclusion and the summary, once again, I really think that the FOSS community is not conscious enough of how, if we have the ambition to fight surveillance capitalism, we need and we must make it simple and reduce the technical and human cost of server administration. Otherwise, we won't be able to have all those libhoster things and self-hosting things, and people won't be able to have a realistic alternative to surveillance capitalism. And in fact, YunoHost shows that it can be done. We show that it's not just a fantasy. A lot of our users use YunoHost with limited technical knowledge. So not completely the general public, but we are getting there. And of course, there is so much to do. And for this, we need your help. So please help us. And thank you.
You're at least the sixth speaker today who was talking about UX. So I'm pleased because I'm UX designer. So, any questions?
The hardware you show on which we should install YunoHost at home, like the Orange Pi or Raspberry Pi, is using some micro SD card as a hard drive, and only one micro SD card is pluggable in those cards. And so what is done in YunoHost to have backups and maybe RAID or something with replications?
Yes. So basically, if I summarize the question, I think you refer to the danger of using SD card because it can corrupt easily. So what about backups and stuff like this? In fact, I have a few more slides. So, so we are indeed working on remote backup integration. This is something we are trying to get funded, but we will do it anyway eventually. It's just going to take more time. So basically, the idea is that you can have 2 people, each one of them with a server, and to increase the robustness of the backup system, instead of keeping the backup archive locally, then you can upload it on some friend server. Of course, it's encrypted and so on. So we are using Borg backup for this. It's forcing to use Borg backup for this, and there is already some work. It's basically only integrated as an application right now, but we want to take it into the core of YunoHost so that it's directly available once you set up your instance. But basically, you would need a friend and say to him, like, I would like to host your backup on your server, and in exchange, I can host your backups. and so on. So if your server crash, you are able to retrieve the backup anyway.
So thanks for the project. It's very good, very great, and I'm using for 2 years or something like that. It's my sister is using. And just one question. I see a few days ago that still the repo is based in the JC released, and I'm just surprised that it's not Stretch Debian. It's not compatible, or can I upgrade my system and using still the repo for the JC released?
So you mean your instances is still on JC?
No, it's right now it's in Stretch, but the repo for YunoHost is still in JC. Maybe I'm wrong, but the stable released of YunoHost is still in JC, right?
No. We stopped working in JC like 6 months ago.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Repo.yunohost.org.
No, I think it should be forge.wynohost.org.
Okay.
if the migration succeeded and so on.
It's a wrong. It's old link. So.
Well, basically, if you had an old system in JC and run the proper migration thing to go to Stretch, it should automatically update it.
Okay, but I didn't do the things with YunoHost tools.
Okay, so that's the issue.
Okay, thanks.
Hello. Okay. I have 2 questions, but I think they're similar. So first one, I've checked how it can be installed, and I haven't found, is it possible somehow to install to Android device? Can I install on my phone and have the same interface?
So yeah, can you repeat?
Is it possible to install this Yuno on Android device?
Oh, no.
And no plan to support?
Basically, you need a Debian system.
Okay.
So.
And what? Okay, and the second question, I saw the app. So, how much work I need to be able to install my own application and make it a part of this Yuno setup? So, what is required to make application work in this setup?
Yes. So basically, if you are thinking about hosting your own website, for instance, or like PHP or MySQL application, there is like an app, I don't know, template. Like you can install the app and just using FileZilla as a SFTP client, you can upload the files. And if you are thinking about a more complex application, like, I don't know, Node.js application or something very specific, basically, the philosophy is that if you are able to install the application by hand in the command line, then you can basically copy-paste all the command you type into a script. And this is a good start for YunoHost application. Then you can refine it and making it more generic and robust. But basically, if you are able to install it by hand, you are quite close to being able to create a YunoHost application. There is documentation online in the YunoHost documentation.
Sorry, time's up. Thank you.
Okay, my question is just the hardest part for me, self-hosting with YunoHost, is not YunoHost, but it's working with the limitation of the ISP. And do you have plans to try to help with that or work with ISPs?
So in fact, I was not able to fit the Internet Cube thing in the presentation, but basically the Internet Cube thing is trying to make and to create a plug-and-play device that you can just put in the hand of the general public, and they will plug it at home and it will be working right away. So how does it happen? Well, we use basically a VPN from the FDN Federation. So this is like associative ISP in France, but it could also work with like German associative ISP, I don't know. And basically you get, well, thanks to the VPN, you actually bypass all the ISP restrictions. So for instance, like the port 25 for email.
Thank you.
Stickers in the